my mother had Alzheimer's, this is many years ago, and I watched her, I watched her basically decompose, or not decompose, but basically go downhill, bodily as well as mentally. And I thought, I'm watching the fern, which surrounds my house, and I watched how the fern starts out like this, like a fist before it opens up, like a fetus, and opens up big, wide, like full-grown person, and then ultimately it folds down. You see? So I did this whole show based on the many ages of the fern, if you will. But it was really an echo of my mother's condition at the time. So then we had the fern, and then we had the seed, we had the brain, which I referred to, and we're going to get to the last one later. So we have references here. The fern, we have this. This is referential to the fungus that I'm referring to. Again, this is my photograph, which by a transfer process becomes a print. And this is a piece of woodcut. You can go through it and say this is from this and this is from that, but it doesn't really matter. Order out of chaos. So then we have two that are over the white couch. These are among the last pieces. These and the one that's behind the door these three are among the most recent collages. And they're all recent, but this is really recent because this is since my husband died. My husband died at the end of, hello Sheila. My husband died at the end of August 2011. And I told you that many of these were done during his illness, and some of them were done after he died. And these were very conscious. I mentioned before that I don't like to be too conscious. But I consciously wanted to do something for him, about him, thinking of him, and that's why they're both called elegy. And I hope that there's some suggestion of energy. And you might say that the color tonality that I'm using in a lot of these pieces is reflective of that thinking also, the elegiac thinking. I don't even mind the suggestion in the one on the left, maybe more than the one on the right, of music, which of course is what an elegy is. And there you see all of the things I've been talking about, the bits and pieces, the snaps, and the little, again, the use of the monotype, and some found papers that I'm always looking for paper, and I squeezed in a piece of photograph here. That's hard to do because photograph is another kind of material. It doesn't always go, but I think it worked. And that's what it is. It's just this kind of composing and putting together until it starts to move me. And so that's why, as I said earlier when I quoted myself, that's why it has to be abstract, and that's why it has to be this adventure of not knowing where I'm going. And then when I get there, being really excited, really surprised. The one at the bottom of the steps is called Lost Language. And I don't know where that may take me somewhere new. I'm not quite sure. That is a reference to also my husband, Lost Language. When did you last really talk about for the cry step. But I'll stop talking about that. So, let's come around and move through here. I love milkweed because it falls apart. It disperses, just like my piece of paper. And it just gave me room to move. And notice that most of the things now, anyway, here, are not a living, moving flower in their full form, but rather it's what happens afterwards. It's the dying down or the dispersal. It's what's suited. And this, perhaps, if this has a relationship to other things that we've just seen, meaning the collages that I was just talking to you about, it's through the calligraphic nature. It's the idea of just using pure line and shape, and so it's limited to that. It's more like a large drawing on paper, a drawing painting on paper. This is maybe where I came from, because I came from drawing. I used to do landscapes years ago, and kept moving. And if we turn around and look on this wall, we have four very different ones. Oh, what you haven't already noticed, I can't stand this. can't stay in the same place. I used to think it was a terrible fault, that you have to know what you're doing, have a style, and stay there. But Hans Hofmann said, if I ever find a style, I'll stop you. And okay, I mean, he was being a little, you know, conscious. But on the other hand, I know what he meant. So these are called portals. So we have doorways. Portals are doorways to something. I don't know what. But I just sort of like the idea of moving, okay, once I do squares, and I like to do verticals. After the verticals, I like to do something else. It's the idea of moving around, changing. And maybe that's going to lead to somewhere else too. That's always when you're having a show, it's a good time to pause and assess. You know, the artist learns a great deal from having a show as well as the spectator. And where you're next going to be moving is not that sure. But it's a very good way, a good point to get to when you see the patterns. Over there, I can't cover everything, are smaller collages which have, again, that common ingredient, sandpaper. And I just loved it, both sides, the rough side and the printed side. And in that, I wasn't being all that original because, you know, people like Schmitz, who I referred to earlier, of course, knew how to use his papers on both sides and knew how to use typography as a texture as well as the meaning of words. Two small postcard size in the dark pieces here. Again, take that sandpaper and sort of submerge it with the use of paint over. So that is another one. But before all of that, I would, not so far before, but somewhat before, if you come around here, you'll see work that I did have once before in a show. Most everything here has never been shown before. This one was. And this is, again, this mixture of the printed collage piece and the loose, looks like watercolor, but it's not. It's collage. It's a collage. And it's the desire to have it all, to have your cake and eat it too. To be loose, to be tight, right? Okay. And if I can pull it off, I'm grateful. Let's move to the quirkiest piece of the show. This one, Adrian very much wanted in the show because it's pretty strong. Can you move a little bit farther? In my mind, I've been saying this to myself, but I didn't want to name it this. In my mind, I was saying, when am I going to take, I've been talking about life's effects and how they come out in your art. When am I going to take my own condition, which is ovarian cancer, and somehow project it into art? When will that ever occur? And I didn't even start this thinking that, which is good. You shouldn't be too self-conscious. It's hard, you have to work against it, right? So I started doing these things, and I needed red. You know, I hadn't been using red, I needed red. Why did I need red? And I needed these shapes. Now the shapes, I've always loved. I mentioned that earlier. I love shapes. But where were they coming from? I still don't know. If somebody has an answer, I'll be happy to listen. These shapes, and of course the variety, one after another, after another, after another, cellular. Cellular, but not specific, because, you know, no medical journal is going to print these. But it's okay. I call it mutation, because with mutation means change. And that's what's happening. And I kind of think I could go on and on and on and on and do a whole movie. Somebody give me a room, a commission, I'm ready. I would be, and these over here is maybe as good a place as any to stop and ask the questions, because these are the kinds of things I find. I don't find them mounted. I did that. But I find them, this you'll probably see something very like this on the back wall. These are the things that I photograph and basically transpose into a kind of print and then use. And I kind of made that up. I don't think I've seen anybody doing that particular thing. It doesn't even matter. But I love these things. And this is musical. They are always there for me, waiting if I find them on the forest floor. So all of that is the mix. And I didn't take you around to this wall, but there are many, many more collages here. I think that I would like to take questions, and if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer. Anybody want to ask me anything about anything?
You know, I was interested in these here because I spotted them in your studio a few years ago. These are the same ones, right?
Yeah, but they are a couple of years old.
A couple of years old, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
I like them then.
Thank you, thank you. I hope that hasn't changed.
No, no.
Anybody have any other specific questions about?
There's a question over here.
Oh, yes.
It's a very simple question. I'm wondering what teeth you reach.
Oh, that's very specific, very important question. Depends on what you're trying to glue together. I have a special love. I could call one of my students and say, "What's that?" It's called methylcellulose, and it's used specifically for thinner papers. If you were putting something really heavy down, I don't think, for example, when I put this down, medium. But I like the other. I like it also because it smells good. And it doesn't stick to your fingers, all those. And it's reversible. Thank you. Reversible is extremely important to the way I work. It's just like a painter paints over. This collagist keeps lifting up and putting down, and lifting up and putting down. And that's what it took a long time to discover that need in myself. And that's something that I really want to say. I find it very, very important. I want to read you something, okay? Because I find this one of the very dearest quotes that I have come across by the writer Willa Cather. It says, "Artistic growth is, more than it is anything else, a refining of the sense of truthfulness. The stupid believe that to be truthful is easy. Only the artist, the great artist, knows how difficult it is. Every artist makes himself born. It's much harder than the other time." And Louise Bourgeois says, "The purpose of making art is self-knowledge." She works on herself too, very much in her life. So I could go on and on. I could talk about art history and all that stuff, but I think that maybe I don't want to go too far. It's up to you. It's up to Adrian. Adrian's the
Well,
timekeeper.
I think maybe if you want to linger around after, people can ask more
You
specific.
can ask me
or
direct
she can
questions.
discuss
Absolutely.
things
Sure.
closer up with a smaller group.
Sure. Very good.